Yes. Okay. All
And
right.
just so you know, right now I have audio but no visual of you.
Yep, I know, I'm trying. It's a little dark in here, so I'm trying to figure it out. Hello.
Gotcha.
Hello,
All right, let's,
we're gonna have to rearrange.
yeah, we are gonna have. I don't know if it would be easier to take well,
Might be easier to roll it out there instead of rearranging,
okay.
unless somebody else wants to rearrange, but.
That is a great question. We will figure it out. Let's see if I can pivot this. And then let me let these folks in. And we'll figure it out. Are we doing? There, okay. We're doing a little bit better with who we can see. If I push.
Yep.
Yep, if I push this table back and I'll push it back into the corner, then that solves this issue, so I will do that. How does this light turn on? Okay.
So. Right there.
Okay. Okay, this is much better. Okay. This gives us a little bit more room. And we can work around this. Okey doke. Mr. Adam, are you coming in here? All right, let's have me not be in the way. And we can do that. This is. Mr. Kim, if you could I think you could actually back, whoop, no. Okay. You could either go forward or you can go, yeah, and then Adam, can you get in if you go this way? Yep, there we go. Okay, hi, Miss Paul, how are you doing?
Yeah. If anybody else wants to join here, that's gonna be interesting. Yeah.
You can figure it out. And I can push this back.
Hello,
Hi there.
If I push that back a little bit, then.
I'm gonna keep this on mute so you guys can do your thing.
And you can get kind of near me.
Yeah.
And we can.
Believe me, I won't.
All right, thank you all for your patience, we're kind of running a minute or two behind, but. I'm not sure Pastor Strong needs any introduction, but he is, quite the amazing guy. He's a pastor with the Lutheran Church and he happens to have cerebral palsy. And I'll let him give the rest of that. He's been on here before, that's why I'm keeping it short.
Well, hello, folks. First thing I have to say is you all are gluttons for punishment because we did this once before. So I am very glad to be back with you again. I'm not sure if I've met all of you. I know I met several of you and connected with a few of you on Facebook as well. So James and I just thought we would make this a little bit more free flowing than last time. I can give you just a little bit of a very brief introduction about my disability and other good stuff in my life. And then, as far as I'm concerned, the floor is open to whatever you want to talk about. But again, I am Devin Strong. I've got a few years on you guys. I turned 60 in January. Lord help us. I am a pastor at a small church south of Savannah. Been in the ministry a very long time, but my disability situation is maybe similar to some of you. I was born with cerebral palsy in 1965. I was born with CP because I was very premature for the medical care at the time. Also, mom was a smoker, and they didn't realize quite how bad that was at the time. And the doctors made a mistake as I was in the process of being born. They gave my mom an epidural meant to numb the lower half of her body, and instead they numbed the upper half of her body and almost stopped her heart, which is how I ended up with CP. I walked on crutches until I was 38 years old. I was very fortunate. I was mainstreamed in schools all the way through from elementary school, but for my parents and for me, it was a battle all the way through to get the local schools to take me. And I think about that particularly from the perspective of my parents. You know, they were 25 and 26 years old when I was born. Nobody knew a whole lot about disabilities back then, but they just sort of instinctively advocated for me. So I had a wonderful childhood. We were in a small neighborhood. I had close-knit friends. We grew up in a church, so I had church friends. I went to a small church college where I really thrived academically, but also socially. So I'd say I walked on crutches. My disability was pretty stable until I was about 38, when I started noticing that I was dragging my right foot and couldn't figure that out, why it was happening. Went to the doctor, and of course the doctors blew me off. They said, well, you're basically middle-aged and you have cerebral palsy, you should expect this. And yeah, that didn't sound right to me. I knew something had changed for me. So I pushed and pushed and pushed until finally, before Christmas that year, I got a neurologist to do a full spinal cord MRI. And December 23rd of, what would that be, 2002? Yeah, 2002. The neurologist said, son, you have a problem. And I said, oh, really? And I have a spinal cord compression up at C5 and 6, which, as you know, is way up in the neck. I don't know what caused it, because I walked on crutches for 38 years. Like a lot of us do, I walked slightly bent over. And so that might have just been the result of, you know, cumulative effort of the way I walked. But I was also in a car accident a few years previous to that, where I was actually sitting still in a left-hand turn lane, and a guy fell asleep and drifted into my lane and just creamed me. And so I always felt like, you know, it was probably that accident that aggravated whatever was going on with my neck. So I had surgery to fuse the two vertebrae, and good news is I didn't wind up paralyzed, because that was a definite possibility. So it stopped the surgery stopped the deterioration, but it didn't fix the damage that was already done. So like probably every one of you, I did rehab for a while to try to get back whatever mobility I could, but I was so unstable with, with the pre-existing cerebral palsy plus the spinal cord compression. I was so unstable on my feet that I just wasn't very effective. And after some soul searching, I went to the wheelchair thereafter. And I've been a 24/7 wheelchair user ever since. I use a manual wheelchair. So many people say to me, yeah, you should get a power chair. It's faster, blah, blah, blah. And it is. And there are times when I wish I had one, but I've opted for a manual wheelchair for two reasons. One is having a manual wheelchair helps me use what I got, right? My upper body strength is still good, and so by using a manual wheelchair, I'm at least keep my arms and shoulders in good shape. I worry about rotator cuff issues. Lots of people in wheelchairs for a long time develop rotator cuff issues, and if that happens to me, I'm going to be in big trouble. But so far, so good. But the other reason I do it, and you know this better than most of us, the expense of a manual wheelchair plus, the $50,000, $60,000 for the van to transport it is not in a pastor's budget. So I use a manual wheelchair, and I'm able to I'm very fortunate. The church I serve, there is not a step in the building. There's barely any carpet. So I function pretty well in my church building. The challenges have to do with getting in people's homes. Of course, I can get in hospitals and nursing homes because they're accessible. But getting into people's homes has its challenges. So I do a lot of visiting over the phone. I visit with people at church, etc. But that's probably been the biggest limitation in terms of my ministry since I've been in the wheelchair. For a lot of pastors, going into people's homes and giving communion is a big part of their ministry. And even in Savannah, as opposed to Atlanta, Savannah is flatter. So I have a chance of getting in some homes, but a lot of places I just can't get into. So that is a challenge you all know an awful lot about. So that's my story. Let's see, I've been married for it'll be 37 years coming up New Year's Eve. I got married on New Year's Eve, so I could never forget my anniversary. And I have two kids that are probably the age of several of you. One of them is or was a college classmate of James's. So that's 3 minutes on Devin Strong. But I'm happy to answer anything about disability, church, theology, anything else you want to ask. So
Does anyone have a question for Pastor Strong? Anyone? Bueller?
yeah, I was gonna say, do you guys know that reference? Bueller?
Yeah.
Well, I'll turn it around then. If you don't want to ask questions of me, who wants to tell me one challenge and one good thing that happened this week? Tell me about your lives. Who wants to say one good thing or one challenge?
Well, we had a fundraiser here at Champion's Place.
Okay, tell me about the fundraiser.
We had on Saturday night, we had a barbecue.
Nice.
Backyard barbecue. We do it every year too. We have like big donos and we have a good time. We raise money.
Nice. Do you know how much you raised yet?
$480 some odd thousand.
Woo! Almost $500,000. That's
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
I hope you get a couple of big screen TVs and gaming systems out of that. Something, right? $500,000. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great success.
Pastor, Champions Community Foundation serves folks in wheelchairs, and we're focused around inclusion and belonging
Mm-hmm.
and independence as well. Independence and belonging, excuse me.
Right,
And they have a group home in like Roswell, Johns Creek
Mm-hmm.
on Nesbit Cherry Road. And
Okay.
they're trying to expand the building. So actually, their goal for the barbecue was a little bit lower than what they raised, and
Yeah.
they're gonna take everything above that number and they're gonna put it into the fund that they're using to hopefully expand.
Yeah.
The building.
gotcha.
Um,
Now, obviously, several of you are in a community room there, but not all of you live there, right? Champion serves people that.
yes,
Yeah.
correct. Correct. We have roughly 100 folks signed up for the nonprofit. Only 14 of them live at Champion.
Yes.
And a lot of us are in Georgia, but not all of us.
Right.
Mr. Mark is it Nevada or Las Vegas, Mr. Mark?
Las Vegas,
What?
Las Vegas, Nevada.
Las
Las
Vegas.
Vegas.
That's very
Yeah.
And then Mr. Brian, he's normally in Georgia, but at the moment he's in Alabama. And you know, Pleasant and Andy Springs, and then I'm in East Cobb still. But you know, we have a sports program, and then we have the online programs, and then we have this thing where we'll install assistive technology in the people's houses.
Nice.
Called Champion's Place at Home. Miss
Right.
Paul, I told you before, this is not a classroom, you do not have to raise your hand.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say, Miss Paul? Miss Paul uses a speech board, give her a second, she's gotta type what she wants to say.
Oh, no worries. We can certainly be patient. While she's typing, can I ask a little bit more about your funding? Well, you got it?
What you say, Miss Paul?
CP2. I have CP2.
I remember, yep.
Yes, most of us have cerebral palsy. I have cerebral palsy. Mr. Tim, if he doesn't mind me calling him out, he has cerebral palsy.
Yes.
Mr. Adam has spina bifida.
Okay.
A lot of us have cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
Right. And of
Um,
course, now I'm curious how you all explain it. Years ago, I used to say that it was like trying to tune in a radio station, and the signal doesn't always go from your brain to other parts of your body. But I'm old enough that would work. Now that we've gone digital and internet, that analogy doesn't work for people. Most people don't tune in a radio station anymore. So how do you explain your CP to people who don't know what it is?
it's like a weak internet connection or your Bluetooth isn't connecting properly.
There you go. I need to update my analogies. Very good.
Yep. And Mr.
My
Brian,
Bluetooth isn't connecting.
yes, Mr. Brian, I see you raising your hand. What's up, Mr. Brian?
People may not say it, but I think I might have just a little bit of a palsy.
It does happen from time to
No, I really think I have a little bit of a palsy because there
Yeah.
are certain things I cannot do, and because of the way I sit in my chair and stuff, I really think I have a little bit of a palsy.
I think a lot of us have a little bit of a palsy, even if you don't have a formal diagnosis. You know, there's a
I
big
looked at
stretch.
I looked at some of my charts and stuff. They said I think I have a little bit of a palsy and stuff. I'm not sure. Next time I talk to my neurologist or whatever you call it, I'm gonna ask if I was ever diagnosed with any type of palsy or something.
Right.
Yes.
What's your
I've been
primary diagnosis, Brian?
well, I do have seizures and I do have like autism, ADHD and stuff. I've been on this like medicine for a, I've been on Depakote and Risperdal for the last 30, 30 years and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm gonna be 40 this year in December. So what I want to do is next year I want to try to get off the medicine and stuff.
Gotcha.
Well,
Does it
you
have
just,
side effects for you that you don't like?
See, in order to get off the Risperdal, if you get off the Risperdal, it makes me have really bad tics. What did it give you to fix the problem? More Risperdal.
Gotcha. Yep, yep.
At least,
I promise when I get back in town, we're all gonna have to meet up and go do something fun, and I'll have to make a trip to Champions Place, and I'll have to talk about it in person.
Nice,
yes,
nice.
but anyway, you were saying to Mr. Tim?
yeah, how do you explain your cerebral palsy?
If you could repeat that, James? Cal, I couldn't quite hear. You're not close enough to the microphone.
Mr. Adam was asking Mr. Tim how he explains his cerebral palsy.
Oh, gotcha.
I would say it's a neurological disconnect between your brain and
Yes.
muscles.
He just says it's a neurological disconnect between your brain and your muscles.
Yep, which of course it is. But I think people need a visual picture. So I'm gonna steal that internet connection and Bluetooth failure. That works. That's an updated analogy from my analog radio days.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my about is different, like I explain it, like why, like I have no feeling from the waist down, so,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
yeah, so I can't tell my nose to move my legs, or,
Yeah, we all have a range, right? I mean, there are people with cerebral palsy who can walk almost normally with barely a limp, to people who are practically in a vegetative state. So there's a quite a range
oh,
of
yeah,
what cerebral palsy means.
yeah, it's the feeling, and that's the feeling, yeah. And
So I heard about the fundraiser of Champions. I know you all are positive people, but I'm just curious, what are some of the challenges that you deal with? Anybody face a particularly interesting or frustrating challenge within the last week?
Yes, UTIs. Yes. I've been dealing with UTIs.
Oh gosh, that's a bear, I'm sure.
Yes, the last few weeks. And
And
I also,
basically all they do for that is tell you to drink a lot of water, right?
yeah,
Or do they do something else?
water, and then I've been on antibiotics, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, but I also have kidney stones, or kidney and bladder,
Oh,
that I've been having the last several years.
oh my, I wouldn't wish those on my worst enemy.
Yeah, you've had me before?
No, I haven't, but I've known people that I'm close to. No, I've been fortunate. No kidney stones for me. Knock on wood.
Yeah, but I have a follow-up with my neurologist on Monday. Well, it's a follow-up I've had, but we're gonna talk about my stones, I guess, and see what the next step is, because I've had 2 procedures. I had the laser, and then they had the shock waves, and both did not work. So
They were equally failures.
yeah.
Hmm. Anybody else? challenges this week?
Mr. Tim, do you have anything you want, any challenges you wanna discuss? Besides losing patience with me from time to time, Mr. Tim?
Well, that's perfectly understandable. I've known James for a while.
But
Come,
let me see
closer for
let
the,
me see what I can do.
yeah,
Hang on, I'm gonna see if I can make the wire for the microphone longer.
I'm gonna think for a minute.
okay, I think.
He's gonna think for a minute anyway. Thinking is such a dangerous thing, you know?
Yes.
You know, I think we have Miss Sophia, give me a look.
Hey.
Very good.
Hello, Miss Sophia, how are you?
Sophia's still on mute, so.
We'll give it a minute. Hey, Miss Sophia, how are
Hey
you?
guys, how are you?
Doing well.
Hello.
My goodness, this wire is really tight.
Very good.
But Miss Sophia, we were, Pastor Strong was just asking us if anyone had any challenges this week. Have you had any challenges this week, Sophia?
No, not that I can recall.
Nice. Very good.
Okay, Tim.
We were talking about, several of you were mentioning doctors. Tim mentioned his doctor. I'm curious, do you all feel like, your doctors take you seriously and you get good treatment, or the
Yeah.
reverse where you're ignored?
Pretty much, yes.
I've been blessed to have great doctors.
Great
For the
doctors.
most part.
Yeah.
I
Good,
think
good.
on a broader scale, you know,
Yesterday.
sometimes you know, standing up for ourselves and asserting our independence and, you know, reminding people that, you know, physical disabilities are not necessarily signs of cognitive impairments. And
Exactly.
that we don't wanna be treated any differently than anyone else. I feel like that might be a struggle that everyone here can relate to. I don't wanna speak for Miss Parr because a lot of people already like to speak for her before she can type. But I know that she has had a lot of frustrations, you know, cause people will walk away before you even finish typing, "Hi, how are you?" Right, Miss Parr?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I
yeah,
recently went to the doctor, and at this one doctor's office, she asked me, she was like, "How is the medication?" And I called the office like a few months ago to tell them that the medication that they put me on was like awful and how it was making me feel and everything. And the lady on the phone, who has no business telling me this, goes, "Oh yeah, Dr. McSpain, she told me after you just told me how awful it makes you feel and everything, she just told you to like continue trying it." And I
Oh,
was, "What? Excuse me? Like I just told you all of that for context and you can't tell me something else to help me?" But I went to see my doctor and she got everything situated correctly.
good.
I think a difficulty that everyone here has is, you know, making and I'm sure you're familiar with this as a pastor, is making sure that everyone else feels listened to and heard and
What?
What? But
That's an old one.
yes, and you know, that we can all adequately, you know, speak our mind and get our point across.
What were you saying, James? Oh my god.
Thank you for proving my point, Mr. Tim. But
Okay. But
Well, and
I,
all of our disabilities are slightly different. I mean, we have tons of things in common, but each of us has our own set of skills and liabilities. You know, and so I don't like when people assume, well, I mean, and I've had this happen to me hundreds of times. You know, they'll see me in a wheelchair. Well, you know, I broke my leg 10 years ago and I was in a wheelchair for 6 weeks and it was horrible. Yeah, as if that's in any way matches my experience. And
Maybe
I
it
don't,
doesn't
I
match
don't,
your experience at all.
you know, it doesn't.
Feeling. I know there was this lady in our town and we were just like walking around to like go into some shop or something. And this was like, "Oh yeah, bless your heart." And I was like, "Bless your heart for what? Like I'm just out here living my life."
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of my least favorite phrases. And then when you're a pastor, it gets even worse because sort of the people's religious, I don't even know how to say it. Their religious piety gets involved. Oh, isn't it wonderful? You know, you have this disability, but God made you a pastor. And I always want to say, well, you know, if it's a trade, you know, I'd give up my wheelchair and go sell shoes. Thank you very much. I mean, you know, yeah, people, but then I have to learn, you know, when I want to shoot my mouth off, you know, people they don't mean to be insensitive. They don't mean to be difficult. They just don't know what to say. And so they see you walking around on a sunny day and they bless your heart. Oh my gosh, they let you guys out in public? I didn't know that. Yeah,
It's like, yeah, they did.
that's right.
Otherwise we wouldn't be out in public.
Exactly. No, it's and I've had waiters and waitresses, you know, when I'm out with my wife, it's just the two of us, you know, they'll take her order and then they'll look at me and see my wheelchair, and then they will ask my wife, well, what does he want to eat? You know, and you know, my wife has a cantankerous spirit as well, and she'll say, well, I don't know, but why don't you ask Reverend Dr. Strong what he wants to eat for dinner? The brain bone is not connected to the leg bone.
Oh goodness. Well, in my experience, and I can't speak for everyone here, but I try to meet people where they live. You know, some people have this notion that if they know one person in a wheelchair, or they vaguely know of one person in a wheelchair, that all people in wheelchairs are like that person.
Exactly.
So, like, and you gotta remind them, oh, I know one person with red hair, so all people with red hair must be similar. You know, that's not how that works. So, I mean, it can be a test of patience at times, but it giving other people grace and giving ourselves grace, I've found, has been a very useful life skill. and having as much patience with other people as we would like to have.
Yeah.
Which is easier said than done. I'm getting the side eye from Mr. Tim because he does
Well,
not.
I totally agree. I just think a healthy dose of sarcasm also keeps me sane. Along with your comment, James, I have had people assume that I know all disabled people everywhere. You know, that there's some sort of crip handshake, and we all have monthly meetings. You know, when I went to seminary, there were. It wasn't a huge school, but it was several hundred, and there just happened to be one young man in a wheelchair. In addition to me, he had cancer, and so he was a double amputee. And my first day in class, first day on the grounds, I'm talking to the registrar, and she asks, "Well, have you met the other?" You know, and I knew exactly what she was going to say, you know, because I had seen this guy. His name happened to be Ralph, but we came from different parts of the country. We hadn't had a chance to connect, but I saw him on the other side of the campus. And, you know, just the assumption, well, surely because you're disabled, you're all a part of the same club. I mean, don't I know Sophia and Brian and Britt? We have disabilities. We must have regular meetings. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. So it's, you know, I agree with you. We have to give people grace, and I recognize that 9 times out of 10, people don't intend to be difficult or stupid. You know, and so grace is always warranted in almost every situation. But a little humorous sarcasm also helps me get through the day.
I know a lot of people on this call who have a healthy sense of sarcasm.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, here, let's get the conversation going. Craziest thing that somebody said to you about your disability. I threw mine out there with people asking my wife what I want for dinner. I'm sure I'm not the only one. What have people said to you? And Sophia said she got the bless your heart on the street.
I was asked one time oh yeah, it was at I think my older brother's high school graduation, and we were trying to find a parking spot. It was at the Grant Arena, and this security guard or whatever this person, he said, asked my mom, well, can you walk a little bit? Yes.
Yeah, I get that all the time at the airport. They're like, can she stand
Yeah.
unassisted very well? And we're like, no, but thank you very much.
Exactly.
And then, also I was at the Ocean Kill a couple weeks ago, and I had to get on the X-ray machine or the X-ray table to get a chest X-ray, and the guy the nurse asked my caregiver, can he stand? And he said, and we said no. Like, I'm in a wheelchair, and
That's right. Yeah. You think I'm using this thing for my health?
yeah, really. It was a man.
Yeah, I had that happen. Well, we had rented a hotel out of town in Alabama, I think. Isn't somebody in Alabama right now?
Mr. Brian
Brian's
in
Brian is in Alabama. I was in the great state of Alabama. We had rented a hotel, which of course
What hotel? I might know where it is.
where was I'm trying to remember the town. Anyway,
Wasn't like Irondale, or something like that.
no, it was a small town, but anyway, we rent this hotel, and of course, I always ask for, you know, a wheelchair accessible room, because you know as well as I do, sometimes, you know, they'll have a room with, you know, 2 bars over the tub, and they say that's wheelchair accessible, but the door is so narrow you can't get into the bathroom. But anyway, so we get to this, we check in and go into our room, and the room is laid out so there's there's kind of like once you get in the room, it's like a fairly narrow hallway inside the room, before the room widens out. Well, the hallway was fine. It was wide enough to get a wheelchair by, except they had bought these huge oversized armoires for the TV, that they put in every room, and the armoire didn't fit in the corner where they put it. It extended out into this hallway portion of the room, so you couldn't get past the armoire to get into the main part of the room where the bed was. And so we immediately go back to the desk and say, you have another room. This isn't going to work. The other room is not accessible. Can't get to the bed. And like several of you said, the first question was, well, can he just get up and walk past the armoire and then bring the wheelchair? No, I can't do that. If I could do that, I wouldn't have asked for a wheelchair accessible room in the first place.
And also showering or like using the restroom and stuff, like doing all of that stuff, we need a wheelchair accessible room for that. Because typically the bathroom is accessible as well as the room because they have that roll-in or walk-in shower, whatever you want to call it.
Yep. I always say, look, I can be very flexible, but I need a place where I can pee and I need a place where I can sleep. I can't do that. It's not going to work.
I'm gonna call on Mr. Josh. Do you have anything you want to ask the past?
Yeah, I came in late. I didn't realize we were starting so early. I just got I've gotten a few things like that. Like I had one experience where my uncle, who was a cruise director at the time, said, "Oh, the ship's rooms are fully accessible." Well, guess what? The door's barely wide enough for a wheelchair.
Yep. And it's even worse when they should know better when it's your uncle, right?
Yeah.
Well, going back to your comment about manual chairs versus power chairs, I know for a fact that I've used wheelchair stalls, wheelchair stalls that could barely fit a manual chair and could definitely not fit a power chair. And
I use the same stalls for my walker, and you're like, what is this? This is so inaccessible.
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
not accessible at all. Whether I'm using a wheelchair or a walker, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So here's a good one. I do a Bible study every week at the local nursing home here where I live, and we'd finish the Bible study, and I needed to use the restroom, but there was a public restroom in the hall down from the person where we just were. But I get in there and like you said, it was a single commode restroom, so it was barely big enough to get my wheelchair, manual wheelchair in. But I managed to get in, and then you got to get the door closed, right? So you're not entertaining the whole neighborhood. But as I try to stand up and use the toilet, I realized that the floor in the restroom, again in a nursing home, right, is tilted. The floor is not level, so I literally could not stand up and use the toilet in a place filled with people in wheelchairs. And I thought, how in the world did they get away with this design? Yeah, it just stuns me.
Yeah, that can be very frustrating when when we can't use the restroom that's supposed to be accessible.
Yep.
So we're talking about bathrooms here.
Yeah,
I have my own thing about bathrooms that I really don't like.
Okay.
Okay. Do you know when you go to certain places, like when you go to like resort and stuff, or like you go to a hotel or something, where they put the mirror right in front of the toilet and stuff, and when you're trying to do your business, you see yourself doing your business.
Yeah.
So, like for example, if I go to a hotel and there's a toilet in front of the bathroom or in front of the thing, I can't go.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, talk about.
seriously, I cannot go to the bathroom if there's a toilet
about that?
in front of the
Oh,
toilet.
gosh. All right. Well, I kind of took us down a dark path here, but we all have our stories, don't we?
Well,
Life is interesting.
well, let me ask you a question, related to scripture. I know the nonprofit here for us, we really,
I didn't got the fuck.
our official, is it our official slogan? Is,
Watch this.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
it's all.
so we have like our official shirts, and on all of our shirts, on the sleeve, there's Psalm 139:14, I think, 139,
Yes,
which is I am fearfully and
fearfully and
wonderfully
wonderfully
made.
made. Your
I
works.
think I saw that on your website.
Yeah, and it's, I don't want to speak for everyone here, but you know, I'm happy with me as I exist, and
Yep.
I couldn't have myself any other way. And you know, being comfortable in your own skin and your own body, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely. I can't imagine myself without my disability. There's certainly been struggles, and I recognize it's not the same for other people. Other people obviously have much more pain, uh, physical pain, not to mention emotional pain, lack of support, whatever. But yeah, I am exactly where you are, James. I am uh, happy with who I am. I'm happy with with uh, with what I've accomplished. I'm happy with my body most of the time, and I wouldn't want to change it. Did you want to say something, Miss Parr?
No. No.
Okay, but I do. I think a big part of happiness is making peace with what you have, right? We can
Right.
always have more money, more ability, more, right? But I am very fortunate with all the wonderful people I've had in my life over the years, and most of the time I'm pretty content with my situation. And I think my disability here, let's turn the conversation this way. I think my disability has made me better in a lot of ways. Certainly in my profession as a pastor, I think it's made me more empathetic, literally physically, because I sit in a wheelchair. I don't lord over anybody, right? I can look people in the eye, or I look up at them, right? It gives me empathy and openness to other people's situations. And even though those situations may not be as serious as any of ours, they all have struggles, and I can relate to those struggles. It's given me a sense of perseverance that I wouldn't have otherwise. It definitely shaped my life. I knew so early on that God had given me a good mind, but if I was ever going to work, I was going to have to go to college at least, and probably beyond that, because I wasn't going to make make a living as a janitor or, working at McDonald's or a million other things. I had to have a job where I use my mind and my mouth. And so I didn't go through a lot of the teenage angst. Well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to college? Yep, I'm going to go to college, and then I'm going to go to graduate school, and on and on and on, because so the disability helped give me direction and shape. I'm grateful for that.
And for some of the folks here who work part-time or full-time, I know that, finding something that you can do that is meaningful to you and gives you purpose, that can always be a challenge, and goodness knows, just like everything else, careers ebb and flow. So that you had quite a journey with that, Pastor.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. For all of us, right? You want to find a sense, like you say, a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning. And for me, it grew out of my experience in church. But I know that's not the case for everybody. For me, my parents were very active in church, especially my mom in the younger years, and my dad later. And so the church was a place where I saw people serving, and my faith grew over many years, and it just seemed like a natural place for me to serve. Little did I mean, but I was like so many of us. I was sheltered. I never imagined that as a disabled person, I would find challenges in the church. So I am part of a denomination that's called the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, abbreviated ELCA. And for those of you who are at all religiously oriented, we're the liberal side of Lutheranism. There's some other more conservative branches, and sort of on the denominational map, we're probably closest to Episcopalians and Presbyterians. So enough of that. But our current denomination came out of two smaller versions of the Lutheran Church that started out as ethnic based. There was kind of a German Lutheran Church and kind of a Norwegian Lutheran Church. And so in the predecessor bodies before the current configuration, they joined together in 1987. Prior to that, the predecessor bodies were more conservative, and there was some official language in one of the predecessor bodies to our Lutheran Church that said that people with disabilities could not be pastors. It wasn't necessarily enforced, but it was there in the documents, and it never dawned on me that I would have trouble in the church. I was very fortunate. When you come right out of seminary, you end up in a small church usually, and small churches desperately need pastors. So I didn't have any trouble finding my first call. But after 5 years, when I was ready to move on to another church, that's when I started to find challenges with people being willing to accept my disability. They had more options. As I got older and more experienced, the pool of people that I was competing against for churches got bigger, and I don't think any of the churches that turned me down were intentionally being mean. I don't even think most of them would recognize that they chose not to call me as their pastor because of my disability. I don't think they were even aware of it. And of course, I would try to talk about my disability. I would try to answer their questions. I would try to set them at ease, all the things that we do, right, when people are nervous about our disabilities. but I went through many, many interviews over the years where I just didn't get very far in finding my place to serve because I believe my disability was a serious roadblock. So, I mean, it's real. I've also had some wonderful experiences and been able to use my gifts in many and various places. Some small churches, some larger churches, a campus ministry, and a brand new church that we started from scratch. So I've had, like all of you, I've had successes and I've had failures. So one of the things I guess I would say in this context is that being successful, using your gifts and finding meaning in life doesn't have to be something that we're paid for, right? I mean, you got to find a way to pay your bills. I get that. We all need food. We all need money. All need a place to live. But you can be successful. You can find meaning in your life just in terms of how you relate to other people, connecting with them, supporting them. So even if you can't have the career of your dreams, I want to say to you folks, and I know you would say to me, that you can make a difference, you know, in ways that don't necessarily involve a salary.
I know for a lot of the people here, and again, I don't speak for everyone, we find a lot of reassurance and a lot of inner strength within faith and, you know, our beliefs and also, you know, who we are as individuals. I think I speak for a lot of people here when I say a lot of people here would identify themselves as Christian. How has your experience as a, well, I don't know how to phrase this question, Mr. Adam, I think you understand what I'm talking about.
I don't know.
How has your faith journey been influenced by your life experience and vice versa?
Well, I guess early on, right, I had to figure that out, sort of make peace with my faith and my disability. And so how do you deal with an all-powerful God and having a disability? But that question is not unique to us, right? I mean, how can there be school shootings and there be a God? How can there be starving children? You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? There is so much pain in the world, you know, and at one level you look at it and you say, well, there can't possibly be a God because there's all this stuff going on in the world. So I had to wrestle with that. Yeah, even as a kid, even before I could really verbalize it in Sunday school and so forth, because I'm hearing all about, you know, God is love and Jesus is love and Jesus came down into the world to walk with us and to experience our life, you know, and God is not angry, God is not judgmental, God loves us as we are, you know, and I had to reconcile that with the fact that I was on crutches or later in a wheelchair. So for me, I have just become absolutely convinced that that God didn't cause my disability. First of all, I mean, some people wrestle with that. How did God give me a disability? I never say that. I mean, I got a disability because the medical care when I was born wasn't the best, right? I got a disability because mom was a smoker and she did things that were harmful. She didn't do them intentionally, and I got a disability because you know, the doctors or nurses who gave my mom the epidural, made a mistake. I don't blame God for those things. I mean, things happen because it's a broken world. And so for me, I've always had to look and say, now what I believe where I see God is God breaking through, trying to bring good news in the midst of bad news. I see God in caring church people or friends I had from the neighborhood, or, you know, my courageous young parents. I, you know, at the risk of embarrassing anybody, I mean, I see God in all of you, in your perseverance, right? So I've had to recognize and be honest about the real crap in life sometimes, but I believe that God is always working in every situation to try to make things better. And so I have tried to live that out. I have tried to use whatever abilities I have to be, you know, a tool in the maker's hands, right? To be one of those people who tries to offer God's grace to other people. But I could never worship a God that I thought put me in a wheelchair. I mean, I could never worship a God who gave somebody cancer or anything else, right? So I've made the theological distinction, which is for me, is just critical to say, you know, we live in a broken world, but God has not abandoned this world. God is constantly working in the world to try to bring about good. And, you know, I see miracles in the world all the time, and I don't mean to be, um, um, you know, fluffy or Pollyanna about it. I'm very aware of how ugly the world can be and is, but I see miracles every day in the world. Uh, and for me, all of that is God's doing.
Does anyone else have a question for the pastor or anything before we wrap up?
I know when you're going back to the doctor thing, that I don't know if this is when you like, maybe with CP, but with bifida, when you're an adult, going to adult doctors, there are some adult doctors don't know much about bifida, so
Right.
yeah, so I don't know if that's anything like with CP too.
Yeah, and that I had to come to terms with that too. And you know, it's wild, you know, because I think we're all taught, well, doctors are the experts, of course, right? But it was something you said, James, early on about advocating for yourself. I mean, think about the you know, I don't know what medical school curriculum looks like these days, but I would imagine, you know, that, you know, in 4 years in medical school, maybe they got one lecture on spina bifida, right? And maybe they got 2 lectures on cerebral palsy, you know, because there's several different varieties of it, or you know, effects of it. You know, I mean, yes, doctors may be very smart people, but their couple lectures that they experienced in medical school in no way compares to your lifetime of experience, you know. And so when we hear things from doctors that sound clueless, or the doctor, Sophia, you were saying, if the doctor, you know, says, well, just keep taking this medicine even though it makes you sick, I think we absolutely have to stand up for ourselves. You know, they may be the expert in medicine, but you're the expert on you, right? And you know,
Exactly.
the older I've gotten, the more willing I have been to stand up and say, you know, that may be what it says in the textbook, doc, but that's not my experience.
Does anyone else have anything to add before we wrap up and thank Pastor Strong for his time? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller?
Brian's got a hand up. You want to say something, Brian?
Yeah, thank you very much for this talk. I'm actually in Alabama right now. Where exactly did you stay? Because I'm familiar with the area.
I'm trying to remember. I served a congregation in Montgomery, Alabama, but we were on a trip. Um, and I just can't remember. I'm sure you know the
Wasn't
area,
like
but I don't.
Huntsville or something.
No, it was some small town in South Alabama. We were actually on our way to New Orleans. So, but
Wasn't like Auburn or something like that.
no, I don't think so. But I bet that's an experience like I had is you can have in lots of small towns all over the country. No, I don't remember.
Yes. I, I I went to an autism convention with my mom a couple weeks ago, about a couple
Nice.
months ago, and the hotel room, you wouldn't even be able to get in with your wheelchair because it doesn't have one of those tubs that you roll into, and the couch looked like something out of the basement.
Yep.
And plus the table was not they had a little kitchen in there, but wasn't wheelchair accessible.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Life is interesting, especially down here in the South, right?
Where do you live?
Sorry, where do I live? I live in a town called Richmond Hill. It's a town of about 20,000, about, oh, maybe 20 miles south of Savannah on the Georgia coast.
Yes.
Oh, I know where that is. I know exactly where it is. You
Gotcha.
said it's close to Savannah.
Close to
Is
what?
that near Interstate 16?
Not far, right? Yeah. Probably Interstate 16 is probably 20 minutes from where I am. Yep.
Yes.
So we're south of Savannah.
Yeah,
But
we'll have to do this
I lived
again.
in
I like
Atlanta
talking.
for about 15 years, different parts of the metro area. I lived in Roswell, I lived in Swanee, I lived in
Wait,
Marietta.
you lived
So,
in Roswell, oh, Georgia?
Yeah.
yep, I lived in Roswell, Georgia.
I
Yep,
actually live in Woodstock, Georgia. Have you ever been up there?
I have. Yep, sure have.
Be funny if you know my people.
Yep. Well, it's a small world after all.
Yeah,
Well, friends,
I work at a coffee shop for people with disabilities up in Woodstock, Georgia, and they just opened up a second location.
awesome.
Awesome.
Well,
Well,
friends, it has been a pleasure again. I enjoy having these conversations. I like hearing from you and hearing your stories and offering whatever 2 cents I can in the process. So if you are crazy enough to want me back, I told James I'm willing to come on and do these conversations about once a quarter. So let him know if you wanna put me on a rotating schedule and see, we're at the end of October, so I would suppose I would see you guys at the end of January potentially. But
Yeah,
whether we do
you'll
or
see.
not, I've enjoyed it. Go ahead.
Wait,
yes,
wait,
sir.
you'll see me at
Everyone say
I have
thank
my
you.
birthday in December.
Very good.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank
Oh, you're
you.
most welcome.
Thank you, Pastor.
Take care. Thanks, James, for organizing it, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Good night, all. Sleep
Good
well.
night.
Good night.
Tell him good night.